This essay discusses themes of suicide. Viewer discretion is advised. Taste of Cherry is a movie that takes the embodiment of its theme. When you first watch it, it takes you a while to find out what's the objective of the protagonist. It lets the viewer breathe and take in the info before realizing how critical the situation is. But after gripping you, it's almost impossible to let go. At its heart, this calm exterior is nothing but a facade. This is a person deeply in struggle with himself. This is Mr. Badii, a man who is looking for someone to aid him in a rather harsh journey of ending his life. He's looking for someone who can help him while he also helps them. It's a bitter paradox that I think happens to a lot of people who have suicidal tendencies. They seek help, but no one seems to be listening to them, as it happens to Mr. Badii here. Why does Kiarostami choose a minimal plot? What makes his plot so touching for people like me? I can't help but tear up every time I watch this movie. The movie takes a while to reveal the plot. With minimal plots, there's no act. There's a little to even be known as a plot bit. The plot of the story circles around Mr. Badii's search for someone. First, with a military soldier, who seems terrified of the idea. Kiarostami puts his face in a double light when Mr. Badii is talking to the soldier, who must be the bravest, but seems like he can't even think clearly about the objective that he's asked of, to bury and put dirt on Mr. Badii if he dies. The movie takes a long time, putting Mr. Badii in the environment of what seems to be an out-of-city location. But the mesmerizing detail is that Tehran isn't a landscape with only dirt. It has beautiful views, some desert-like, and some parts of it full of trees and life. So Kiarostami probably chose this location for a thematic reason. This person is already buried, although we don't know what the problem is that has taken him this far. The second person, the religious man, takes another approach. He doesn't seem to agree with him, neither would he help Mr. Badii, but he's willing to at least talk about it. And this time, he seems sure about his decision. He wants to end his life and isn't looking for advice or any help in his life. The only thing that he does need help with is after his death. It's a subtle metaphor. He seems to have given up on any hope of being aided and thinks the only place or time he needs help is after his death. But what Mr. Badii might not know himself is revealed through dialogue. Think that I'm this tree, a desert with the environment of everything almost dead. This tree isn't a plea for death. It's a gratitude for life. I'm a tree. I'm still alive, but maybe barely alive. Before we talk about the third and last person, we should talk about why this movie has a minimal structure. I believe it goes beyond the fact that Kiarostami adapted this structure for a lot of his works. It's because of how taboo and differentiating this feeling is. For every person, the limit and threshold for saying enough is different. Revealing the reason behind Mr. Badii's decision would diminish the film's universal resonance. Each person's breaking point is unique, and by withholding specifics, Kiarostami invites the audiences to project their understanding onto the protagonist's plight. If by any reasoning he would have revealed the reason behind Mr. Badii's decision, the plot wouldn't have had the impact. But more importantly, he emphasizes on the suicide itself, not the reason. But here's another reason. The classical structure works for an entire plot, a person who is completely different at the end of the story. And within every act of a story, there's a mini arc happening, helping the final and eventual shift of the protagonist. But here, it's not necessary. It might be too loud and noisy for someone who's this desperate. For Mr. Badii or anyone in his situation, the importance of mini arcs and mini changes are what makes the difference between life and death. The third person is a taxidermist. In a paradoxical manner, this man knows the value of life more than anyone. He starts to talk about life and the beauty of small joys. It's what makes the entire life. He he talks about a similar situation in which he wanted to kill himself, but a berry saved his life. The thought of not experiencing the taste of berries in his mouth is what touched him, and he suggests to Mr. Badii the same thing. What if you miss the taste of cherry? Two people, two different people, one wouldn't talk and the other would, but isn't willing to reason with it. Is the taxidermist the third person who agrees to talk about it, but not push him, to say the taboo words, but more importantly, he doesn't want to stop him. He merely suggests that living might not be that bad. Whatever it is, it shall pass. This is where Mr. Badii's mini arc is shaped. The thought of the taste of cherry is what brings him to not want to change, but want to doubt his decision. This is the help he needed. And although he seems to be going through with his decision, we know that Mr. Badii has planted seeds of doubt inside him. I've watched this movie more than once, and one of those times, the person I was watching it with suggested that Mr. Badii might not even have taken the pills, that he just lies there looking at the moon. I personally don't see this end that way, but since it's open to interpretation, I believe that the branches of possibility is what Kiarostami was aiming for in the first place, but more importantly, a conversation. Not the reaction we see from the soldier and not the radical thinking of God is against this act, but a true conversation that opens someone's heart to the hopes they've lost. Mr. Badii in no way is strange with the concept. On the contrary, he has been touched by the hardships of life and he has reached that moment himself. The simplicity in which he explains is what makes the story so powerful, yet so simple. A berry saved his life. This time, maybe a cherry can save Mr. Badii's life. Mr. Badii might not necessarily see life as him. He may have bigger problems, but what Mr. Badii suggests is a simple but powerful mindset. The possibility that he can go on for the simplest things, like hearing children's laughter and joy, bringing little gifts for people he loves, and so on. The metaphors in this movie are countless. Mr. Badii's job works like a paradox for him. He's a taxidermist. He's the one who understands life more than any other. As someone who has been through the same kind of thoughts as Mr. Badii and someone who is now happy and content with their lives, Taste of Cherry was so understandable of the nature of suicide. By not telling the viewer what the problem is, it welcomes thousands of possibilities. In Kiarostami's case, this is actually much more. By not filling the movie with an overload of dialogue, he invites us to at least think about the problem for an hour and a half. And the open-ended ending is also a last hit. Mr. Badii isn't shown in his house. We don't know if he just simply gets ready or has taken the pills. We see the moon, the tree, we hear rain. Does he live? This ambiguity makes this theme humanly universal. We don't know whether it's financial problems or family related or so on. But did he die? Kiarostami asks us. Kiarostami's country and the situation of his living back then makes the subject of this movie not only taboo but almost impossible to talk about. So with the ending, he's suggesting this. Let's talk about suicide and people who might need help. At the end of my videos, I usually ask to subscribe, but this time I'm asking you to start a conversation with the ones who might need help.